Here we are, week 13, and a special event held by the Pro Mazda community. It's Ava's Race Against Cancer, a week 13 special event here at the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps, located in Belgium itself. And what an event we have here today, all coverage on RaceSpotTV. Randy Cheneth alongside Jonathan Simon for today's event. Randy, here we are again at Spa. 3 classes of racing. We have the Lotus 79, the Pro Mazda in action alongside that as well. And don't forget, the Renault 2.0. We got 3 mad classes of cars, qualifying coming to an end shortly, and a track which is so iconic with day to night transitions. Finally, we get to see all this at work. All of iRacing's hard work put to perfection here at Spa.
That's definitely right, Johnny. It's going to be really, really fun to watch, especially a race for such a good cause. I can't wait to see it happen, and we got our grid kicking off here in just a couple of moments.
So Ava's Race Against Cancer, for those that don't know, we've held this event quite a few times over the past year, and Ava Sierra Deal, who was unfortunately diagnosed with neuroblastoma cancer, and this form of cancer, for those that don't know, and it is most commonly found in young children. And if it's caught early enough, it's treatable.
She's
so
4 years
any
old,
donations, yeah, exactly. So any donations you could spare would be greatly appreciated to help the family in their time of need. And donations can be made using the link at in the YouTube description if you're watching this broadcast on YouTube itself. Click the GoFundMe page. We've had a lot of support over its time, Randy, and good to see some more as well. That goal is still far from being reached, but it's a lot closer the last time I saw it.
Yep, and that's the big thing, is at least as long as we're moving towards that goal, that's what's important. It's always good to, these are the sorts of causes that are really good and really, it just really warms my heart to see crowdfunding stuff go to this sort of thing. As much as it's nice to see maybe people with not as much money go racing, these are the sorts of efforts that really, really do matter to a lot of people in the world.
Yep, so qualifying is coming to an end shortly now. The checkered flag is out, but the final couple of cars are coming across the finish line. It's currently Adam Fraser on top with a 2-minute 6.553. I don't think he's going to be touched during the race with a lap time like that. He's joined by Stefan Schlackler on the front row. John Stevens and Charles-Eric Lemelin head that second row of the grid. So we'll look at the rest of the grid shortly as we switch over to the race. But it's a 30-minute event here, Randy, coming up. And it should be, well, plenty of action, really, because that run all the way down to the source, people are sort of troubled by that during the race. I think it's the run down to the Kemmel Straight where Adam Fraser, for example, on pole, doesn't really have first position set here with his starting spot.
Yeah, that's going to be what's so difficult here is in this race is, of course, this being a multi-class race. It's, especially in the open wheel cars, a lot of people may not be used to, really dealing with the multi-class environment with these sort of cars. It's going to be really interesting to see, especially the Lotus and the Pro Mazda and the Formula Renault. I mean, those cars are very evenly matched just in general. They aren't the same. They definitely have some differences in terms of the lap times, and we'll be able to see that in the results page when we eventually go down that. But it's only a couple seconds when you compare then that you got the Lotus 79s that are flying around this place nearly 10 seconds per lap quicker than that second class.
So still in qualifying at the moment. The session hasn't switched over. Are we able to look at the grid yet, Randy? Or is it a bit too early?
We got to wait till the end of the 30 seconds.
Oh gosh! All right. Well, so in the meantime, then we've spoken about the run to the Kemmel Straight. I think another good overtaking spot here today is into that final chicane. Now, do you think it's easier in a slower car like this, in the 79, the Pro Mazda or the Renault, compared to like a Formula One car to overtake around here?
Probably a little bit, because you're gonna spend so much more time going down that Kemmel straightaway. But on the Kemmel Straight on the run in towards Lacombe, then of course going into the bus stop, all the time you can get to actually run up speed and work the draft is a huge advantage to you, and a huge advantage to everyone is that we're about to go down this starting grid.
Yeah, your starting grid for today's Week 13 special event. Adam Fraser starts from pole, as we mentioned earlier, alongside Stefan Schlacker in that second position. Stevens and Lemelin head that second row. Some quick lap times from those two. The grid is pretty packed in those first 3 rows, all the way down to Salas and Lakey. The rest of the grid is on screen. Brenton Parker, one of the organizers for this event, helping support his friend for Ava's Race Against Cancer here today. So as we look at the rest of the grid that is on screen, the starting is, the start-finish line is obviously different to what we normally see here at Spa. It's not the typical Formula One start-finish line here. We're going to be starting on the exit of La Source, heading through Eau Rouge, which will be known as turn number 1 for this circuit. So I guess for the likes of Adam Fraser, he's got a little bit less of a challenge, but it's still that issue he's got now to maintain the advantage and clear the slipstream from those drivers behind.
Yeah, it's going to be really, really difficult, especially, you know, getting that run up Eau Rouge. A lot of these drivers maybe not used to starting races like this. Maybe, just maybe, if they're used to running some GT cars. But if you're used to running these open wheelers, you're going to be 100% used to having La Source as turn 1 as opposed to Eau Rouge and Raidillon.
It's a downhill run to Eau Rouge here for turn 1. Will it challenge the drivers any more than it would starting before La Source? Only a couple of 100 meters to that first corner. It's going to bottleneck though up the hill, and that's where the drivers behind really need to form up. They do not want their event ended today in these first couple of minutes. It's 6:30 a.m. local time in the simulator at Spa, and that's why you see it's morning conditions as the engines rev and the lights illuminate. Ava's Race Against Cancer is green for 30 minutes of racing. Fraser screams across the start-finish line, and how about John Stevens around the outside here of Schlacker? Oh, the two almost collide, and Stevens has to back out. That's allowing Lemelin a run here for second position. Fraser's untouched in the lead as well. He's got probably about 10 car lengths of advantage here, but how about Lemelin around the outside for second position? Schlacker confident on the brakes.
Good start, definitely, for sure. They get down into the Lacombe sector of the racetrack for the first time. Everyone pretty much unscathed. So take a check in with your Formula, I believe these are Formula, nope, this Pro Mazdas as your second class. David Dendelo still leads there completely unhindered, although there is a Lotus 79 that he's slowly getting caught up behind, as well as a handful of his competition. I see Muriel Fati, Henry Robert, and Jean-Michel Noyon in that line as well. How do our Formula Renaults look?
Formula Renault's Jake Feineman is trying to get his way past some cars up ahead, though, in that Pro Mazda class, but he is leading that field comfortably ahead of Jean-Pierre Hellepap. So he's got Dane Neggett in front. Is he going to make his way past? Possibly, who knows? But Jake Feineman now in the lead. So Jake Feineman doing a remarkable job there. But back to your leaders in the Lotus 79, your leading class. Your top three. Lemelin finds himself in the third position. So in the end there, Randy, Stevens had the pretty rapid start off the line, had a potential chance at the second position, now dropped down to the fourth position. It says fifth in the timing screens, but that's incorrect. It is currently fourth on track.
Yeah, and thing is, at the start of a race like this, Johnny, that you're just going to be pretty happy with that, because of course these older Formula cars like the Lotus 79, I know our friends over at GSRC broadcast them a little bit more than we do, but these things have big fat tires that are difficult to get warmed up. And you know, starting on a standing start like this at 6 in the morning local time, I mean, talking about the weather conditions, it's only 78 degrees track temps, and in Fahrenheit anyways. Of course, take that to Celsius, going to be still quite cool. Going to be difficult for all these guys getting these tires up to temps. So for them to actually at least be able to make it through this first lap and picking up a handful of spots maybe in doing so, going to be feel pretty happy with, about that. I do see, I believe the 138 car, Charles-Eric Lemelin, I think may have just taken a slow down at Eau Rouge. He's dropped a handful of spots on the run into Lacombe.
He has. He's dropped behind, well, even Steve Salas now and Jim Lakey, so he's lost a couple of positions, as Randy said. Back to your Pro Mazda class. It's looking quite tight for the lead here as Dendelo defends from Henry Robert and Jean-Michel Noyon in the third position for this class as well. But how about Ridley and Gober? They're pretty close as well, heading down here into Brussels through the downhill right-hander, but no way through for any of the drivers. I love this sunlight, Randy. It's probably Was it your number one feature you were waiting for in iRacing, the day-night transitions?
Well, definitely for me as an endurance racer is a big one. You know, just the way that it's going to really affect tires on the cars. I know they've made some changes to how the tires work and temperature change to sort of kind of deal with that. The older version of the tires were a little bit oversensitive to some temperature changes. They've since sort of changed that in this build, so it's going to be interesting to see how this works out. But yeah, I think there's a lot of people where this has been one of the features they've been waiting for quite a long time, because it's going to make these endurance races just fantastic. And of course, all the tracks getting the new skyboxes. I mean, how often would you have seen a Formula style race at Spa in these sort of conditions? It's not often you'll see races kick off at 6 in the morning. Most racing people, they might want to get up and at it early. Normally this time in the morning they're busy in the garage getting things warmed up rather than getting the cars out there on the track. So it's always nice to see these sort of, I guess, early and sort of potentially even late evening conditions. As a little tight moment for the 22 car Craig Ridley going through the bus stop chicane. It's going to be interesting to see these different time boxes and seeing how different leagues use it, because whenever we get a new feature, people tend to sort of spam it in their leagues and in their events. So everyone's going to be like, oh, we're going to run this Formula style race at 9 in the evening.
Wow, I might. That's something. Sounds like something crazy that I would try.
Sounds like something Singapore would do.
Well, if Singapore was in iRacing, he would definitely do it. But Koznitsi now, you see him in that Lotus 79. He's gone past pretty much all of those Pro Mazda cars and caused a bit of chaos, hasn't he? Some of these Lotus 79 cars coming back through the field after a tumultuous first lap, Randy, made their way. I mean, it was safe. They didn't make contact, but it definitely wasn't calm. It was quite chaotic trying to make their way back up through the order.
It is definitely one of those things. I mean, the Lotus, not that the Pro Mazda or the Formula Renault are easy to drive by any means, but those Lotuses are very, very difficult to drive. They, of course, have a lot of power. The big tires, in some ways, actually make the cars more difficult to drive rather than easier, as much of a contradiction as that may seem, given all the grip they have. So, if you're not... Oh, we got a car upside down at Speaker's Corner. I believe that's John Michael Nguyen, who's just since gotten out of the car.
Oh, tumbling and turning upside down is Jean-Michel Nguyen. But look at the replay.
Yep, replay.
And Nguyen will go through Brussels and then through No Name. And it looks like he's behind Steve Coubet. And you got to put that all on Jean-Michel Nguyen, right? I mean, he made that mistake pretty much all on his own. I think you just misjudged the speed by the driver in front. That was the number 19 car there.
Definitely seems like it. We're getting another quick look at this as he getting ready to go down into Brussels on our current replay. Seeing behind Henry and slow car off to the right in the 19. Close moment there, though. The 19 car seemingly, I don't think that driver is Steve Coubet. I don't know. It's sort of hard. It's hard to say, because if you watch Coubet's line actually through Brussels, it wasn't the sort of typical racing line you typically see. I'm going to get another look at this again from a slightly different angle on board with John Michael Nguyen. Henry at one point, Henry Robert goes up the inside of Steve Coubet through Brussels, and Coubet's kind of all over the place, off the pace a little bit. I think he didn't realize Henry was there, and then he was slow going in towards Speaker's Corner. So I think maybe just a little bit off pace with Coubet, and I think that's why Jean Michael Nguyen really just misjudged that as badly as he did.
Well, the number 19 car, we'll actually switch that in a second, because the lead for that Pro Mazda class looks like it's about to switch into the hands of Henry Robert, who may snatch the privilege that David Dendelo's had for most of this race. Dendelo now demoted to the second position. That is an important position change here for the lead here of the Pro Mazda class. The leader, Lotus 79, Adam Fraser, remains untouched. And how about Jake Feineman in your Renault 2.0, your third class today, your slowest class of cars out there? And they are, well, Feineman really has only about a 7-second advantage, so it is comfortable, but it's not entirely dominant. But back to that incident, Steve Coubet, the number 19 car, he was a lap down. I had trouble finding him on my timing screen because I thought he was in the battle, so I guess he was just trying to let through the rest of the field and just got caught unaware. And it's sometimes like getting past lap cars is a skill, but also letting through faster cars should be known as a skill, I think.
It definitely is. And, I'm someone who having done a lot of the multi-class endurance races, I was typically a low-end GT driver, and in terms of if there was a category of cars, you know, prototype GT1, GT2, I'd typically be GT2 regardless of what the cars actually were. If it was GT3 spec down there, if it was the old school Ford GT, if it was GTE. So I have a lot of experience just letting those sorts of faster cars just get right on past me and carry on. And it definitely is a skill in its own right, just knowing when you can let cars by and when you can't, and knowing when the door's open and when it isn't, and understanding how to position yourself. I remember doing the very first 24-hour race that was held on here. It was actually a RaceSpot event racing with that. I had a couple teammates that are a little inexperienced, and I was doing my driving stints, and when I wasn't in the car, I was having to coach them because they were just giving up so much time because they weren't used to dealing with the traffic. So it was a very stressful event for me, but it is one of those things that I think a lot of the open wheel drivers, Johnny, because they're so used to just getting in the car and doing like what, 15 lap races around Spa in the Pro Mazda, maybe closer to 12. You know, if you're even on the lower end in terms of pace, you're not going to deal with lap traffic in that time span. The leaders just don't have the time to get you. Whereas a lot of the GT, you know, you can see the Formula drivers that maybe have done some of the GT stuff, they're used to, or well, endurance style racing, they're used to dealing with the lap traffic a little bit more.
Yeah. I don't know. I never found it.
Oh, we got a change for our Lotus 79 lead. Steven Schocker's out in front. What's happened to Adam Frazier?
Yeah, I was just keeping an eye on that as well. So Fraser there, and it looked like it may have happened at Brussels, possibly. No, I might be wrong. It's at the Kemmel Straight right now. So Fraser up ahead. Well, Schachler's already ahead there through Eau Rouge. So something's gone wrong for Adam Fraser. I'm not sure if you can track it down, but it did happen at the final corner, Andy. That's where the position change occurred. So is Fraser suffering from some sort of technical issue as he fueled that car right for the rest of this event?
Possibly. We're not really sure, of course, but that pass happened just down to the bus stop. Just saw it happen on your screen. That GSRC-sponsored car, simply put, made an amazing move at the inside of the bus stop and got that move picked up. And Adam Frazier has since lost the second position to the number 33 car as well of John Stevens. So I think actually our hypothesis, Johnny, may not be far off. Either the tire pressures are all over the place, or he's got that car under fuel and is trying to save fuel as much as he can.
Well, tire pressures are a big thing, aren't they, in iRacing? Because you can maybe go about half a second quicker a lap in qualifying like Adam Fraser was, but it's not going to sustain for a race distance. You know, that's where you need to up the pressures by about, you know, what is it, 4 psi or around that mark, depending on the car, of course, too. So that's something where maybe Adam Fraser's suffering with tire issues. Who knows?
It definitely is sort of the rookie or the setup rookie mistake that everyone makes at some point in their sim racing careers, isn't it? They'll, you know, just when you're starting to get used to messing with setups, you'll be doing things with the tires. And when you find the actual sweet spot, what you'll end up doing is, oh, what happens if I raise these tire pressures a handful of PSI? And you'll raise it, it's like, oh, wow, I went really, really fast. Then you inevitably only do about 2 or 3 hot laps, get in the race. Somewhere around lap 6 or 7, your pressures and your tires start absolutely pretty much going to absolute hell. And at that point, you start struggling the way Adam Frazier is. So definitely, I mean, it could be either or. I'll have a look on board with Adam Frazier, actually, when he gets to some of these straightaways, see if maybe he's actually saving fuel going into the braking zones.
So while that's taking place, the battle for the top 3 in your Lotus 79 and overall standings for Ava's Race Against Cancer, we saw Charles-Eric Lemelin swap positions with Jim Lakey. So Lemelin now promoted to 4th. And he is going to try his best at hunting down Adam Fraser, who's 8 seconds up the road. So optimistic, but there's a chance, of course, too. We didn't expect Adam Fraser to lose this lead, at least this early on in the event, with 17 minutes remaining. This is Ava's Race Against Cancer, for those joining us, of course. And Ava Sierra Deal has been diagnosed with neuroblastoma cancer. So this form of cancer, for those that don't know, is most commonly found in young children, and if it's caught early enough, is treatable. So any donations that you could spare would be greatly appreciated to help the family in their time of need. And donations, of course, will be used to help with plenty of things such as medical costs, travel, and other areas the family needs to help deal with this very unfortunate situation. And you can donate using the GoFundMe page in the YouTube description. There's a link there, of course, as well. We're getting closer and closer to the goal. Back to the racing action, though, and Stefan Schlacker up ahead. Looks like he may be challenged for the overall lead here.
Seems like it. John Stevens going to take a peek to the outside into Lacombe.
It was close, wasn't it?
It was close.
Stevens just managed to keep that car in a straight line there. But have a look at Fraser now. He's got the chance here to reclaim that lead advantage. They all head into Brussels now. Top 3 battling for your 3 podium spots here. We're not even halfway through the event.
And we're still a minute off that halfway mark. And this is only the first race, by the way. This is a sort of double header in terms of races. So it's one 30-minute race immediately followed by a second one. So do not go away when this one ends. But you have these 2 varieties of the Johnny Player Specials here trying to do battle with Stefan Schlacker as up and towards now the right-left chicane here near the end of the lap. Nothing going for Adam Fraser or John Stevens. Stevens leaving a little bit over Stefan here. I do want to check back in, though, with our Pro Mazdas, which are having a scrap as well. Craig Ridley, David Denderlow, and Henry Robert. Ridley actually just lost the lead to the number 69 of David Denderlow, and Henry Robert, who is at one point leading this race, has gotten shuffled back to 3rd. So in our top 2 classes, we have the top 3 all scrapping it out. Formula Renault, by the way, that whole entire category is pretty much just kind of spread out, and the Formula Renaults are pretty much fighting amongst the Formula Mazdas.
They have a look at the battle, though, for the Pro Mazda class. Ridley running wide through No Name. Denderlow behind, and the Frenchman of Henry Robert also searching for a position here in your top 2 spots. Robert's had a thrilling race so far. He did start behind Denderlow on the front row for this Pro Mazda class, but they 3 of them go here through the middle part of the lap, heading towards Stavilo, and just no way through for any of them. Schlacker, though, here's Stevens on the attack yet again. They got a lap car up the hill here on the exit of Eau Rouge. Oh, ducks out at the final second to Stefan Schlacker. And that's all the slipstream he could have gained. And I think maybe that risky move may have given him just enough of a tow here to maintain the lead as Stevens sends it deep on the brakes.
Yeah, and Stevens, I think, a little bit too deep on the brakes there. Gave up a lot of time. That's going to open the door potentially for Adam Fraser, who's going to get a run through the exit of Lacombe down into Brussels. That number 9 car dives it up the inside. And the 33 chops the nose off quite aggressively. So Adam Fraser, who seemed like you might have had an open door, if I could actually use the English language properly, it gets shoved back into P number 3. Stefan Schlacker is going to be saying that. Thanks, boys. Thanks for about the 10 or so car length gap.
It was an innocuous move, but Fraser remains alive. Stevens lives another day as well. Oh, look at Fraser. He's pushing to the limit, isn't he? It's not helping his tires any better, isn't it? So it's now 7.7 seconds from Fraser to Lemelin in 3rd and 4th. Would you worry about that?
I probably would, and if I was in this Pro Mazda category leading, I'd probably be worried as well. The 22 of Craig Ridley is going to go back to the race lead through Lacombe. The 69 of David Denderlow not able to hold on to it. And Henry Robert pretty much getting stuck in that 3rd spot, really finding it difficult trying to move his way up forward any way, anyhow that he can as he worked back down through Brussels. So would I really worry about if I was in that Lotus 79 category? I don't really think it's worth worrying about P4, P5 at all. The likes of Charles Eric Lemon and Jim Lackey, just a little bit too far back, I think, to really be a concern. Now, if you're Denderlow, Ridley, and Robert, you might be a tad worried about Hayden Gober, who's just chilling out in that 4th position in that class, pretty much all by himself.
And talking about Craig Ridley, who took the lead of Pro Mazda, he almost binned it heading into No Name as well. It's such a tight line. Got it wrong on the exit of Brussels. Here they are through Stavilo now. You want to just hang on this curb right now. It's the best entry into this next right-hander, Curb Paul Frere. Very weird line you have to take at Spa, but it works. There are a lot of bumps around this circuit. But here's Denderlow on the attack once again. To the inside of Blanchimon. Should have the move signed, sealed, delivered by the apex of the corner, and yet he does. Good work from him. Robert a bit too far behind to pounce on Craig Ridley, so it won't be a double whammy, but Ridley had the lead for about half a lap. Now he has to earn it back again.
Yep, and this is the big trouble in these cars, isn't it, Johnny? These sort of lower-powered Formula cars even some of the new additions that we've gotten, particularly the F3 car, the Formula Renault 3.5, that thing, if you've ever heard it, you can tell it has enough power to deal with some of the aerodynamic drag, but you just spend so much time on the straights because you only have so much power compared to the amount of drag you have. It's the same situation. We also get it if you've ever raced the MX-5s at a place like Daytona or at the Nürburgring doing some of the VLN races. It's the same sort of effect. You just have so little top speed that the amount of slipstream you provide to those behind you is just immense, and we're seeing the same thing happen to David Dendelo. Craig Ridley is going to pounce on the outside, and the 28 of Henry Robert, due to a mistake down at La Source, is not going to be able to even fight with these guys against time going into Lacombe.
Oh, it's so close, but they remain unscathed there. So quick update, your top 3 in Lotus 79 includes Stefan Schlacker, who I'm just watching is off the racetrack and now back on. Something's going wrong for Schlacker. Schlacker is actually in the 4th position, excuse me. So that's just updated on the timing screens. He's lost the lead advantage on this lap. And it looks like Fraser maintains the lead now. He's back into P1. So Stevens into 2nd, Lemelin to 4th. We'll have a look at the replay.
He lost it at the top of Eau Rouge, and there's actually a couple things happening. Stefan, he lost the car all by himself at the top of Eau Rouge. But while they were going through Eau Rouge, John Stevens and Adam Fraser, they were 3 wide with, I believe it was a Formula Renault. I did not see who it was, but I am going to get a replay of that because, my word, going through Eau Rouge, that many individuals wide is very brave. It was a Formula Mazda. As you see him go through on the entry 3 wide, get it single file by the time they get to the midpoint, and that ends up being the battle for the race lead as Schlacker ends up spinning off into the runoff on the right.
So that's what happened there. The drama continues for the overall race lead for Avis Race Against Cancer. There's just under 10 minutes remaining here as we cross that 10-minute mark, but Fraser reclaims the lead. The thing I want to ask you, Randy, is how much does luck have a percentage to play here in terms of reaching lapped cars, and at what point of the racetrack you reach them, or how much is skill?
I mean, there's definitely a bit of good fortune in it. Sometimes it's just going to be points where if you're a faster car, you're going to come up on slower traffic, and you're not going to be able to make a move that if that car wasn't there, you might otherwise be able to make. However, at the same token, there's a little bit of skill involved as well as knowing when you have to pass those cars, and knowing when it's safe to make the move and knowing when it's safe not to make the move, and actually not even just when it's safe, but when it's faster to make the move and when it's faster to not make the move. Because sometimes you actually lose more time trying to make a pass at an ill-advised time and even getting past the car sooner than you would if you just had a little bit of patience, say just shot past them on a straightaway instead of trying to force your way side by side through some corners. Actually, I believe John Stevens is wide going through the bus stop. I think he just missed the braking marker there, so that's going to give Adam Fraser a pretty big buffer once again with 8 minutes and some change remaining in this race. So it's sort of a two-pronged sort of situation, Johnny, of yeah, there's a lot of luck involved of when you catch the cars, but there's a lot of skill involved in knowing what you do when you get to them.
So while that was all taking place, Ridley now has been demoted to 2nd position in the Pro Mazda class. Dendelo back ahead. That position change is never going to end as well. And Henry Robert, as much as I don't want to see him in the 3rd position for the rest of this event, I think it looks that way. He's just biding his time and being patient, or maybe he's just not quick enough. Who knows what's going through the minds of Henry Robert. So Adam Fraser now, does it annoy you that, you know, we're just speculating it could be tire pressures, but I guess his pace is so good, he can sort of make up for it without the tire pressures, and he needed that little bit of luck with the Schlacker mistake.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like it as he goes through Speaker's Corner a little bit wide, not quite able to hug the apex there. So maybe struggling with the tires still a little bit, maybe not entirely happy with that car. It is also possible he may have caught a curb at a weird point, maybe got a little damage somehow on the car that way. There's a couple of sausage curves around the racetrack that are not fun when you hit them, and I imagine with a very low slung ground effect car like the Lotus 79, it's probably easy to do some damage, not entirely sure, but it's definitely been a fortunate race for Adam, hasn't it, to have the sort of issues that his opponents have had, and to be able to slip through the traffic in the times that he's been able to. You know, it's like getting caught up by that Pro Mazda going into a Rouge. That may have cost him enough time to not get it caught up in that incident at the top of the hill with Stefan Schlacker. So for Adam, it's definitely been basically as good of a race as you're going to expect, as our Pro Mazdas are going to go wheel to wheel for the lead once again. And Mr. Henry Robert is starting to throw his hat back into the ring, really working the slipstream on the back of these guys. The 22 is going to take the race lead, but Henry's just going to play it patient, hanging out in third.
He's not pushing at all. He just likes that third position. He's chilling. Can you see the bag of popcorn in the cockpit? No, I'm just kidding. But Dandolo is looking for a move back into Brussels. Looks like Ridley was very incredibly defensive. Now, Ridley got this exit wrong last time he reclaimed the lead. This time, gets it perfectly as he speeds through the left-hander there. So there are your top three again. It's Ridley, Dandolo, and Robert for your Pro Mazda class. And they continue in those positions. Two names we haven't spoken about today, Randy, in your Lotus 79 class. Peter Kuznitsny, who started this race in 34th, is now up to 6th overall. And how about Martin Arnoldus, who started the race 33rd, just ahead of Peter, now into the 10th position. Martin Arnoldus is your Pro Mazda connoisseur, your Pro Mazda aficionado, seasoned veteran, expert, specialist, savant, whatever describing.
I guess Martin Franquez these days.
Well, yeah, one of the two. But Arnoldus is one of those drivers where it's fun to see him in a Lotus 79, something different for a change.
Well, especially these sorts of events, isn't it? Because, while this is a special event and it's, it's mostly for a good cause, there's a pretty, good amount of fun labeled onto it, especially when you have the likes of the Lotus 79, Pro Mazda, and Formula Renault 2.0 all on the same track at the same time. You know that this is going to be the opportunity where if you're Martin Arnoldus, or I know as well Brenton Parker, he's normally a Pro Mazda driver. He's the one actually organizing the event, and he's out there in a Lotus 79 as well. So for these guys, just throwing up these events like this, it's all in good fun for them. No real stress whatsoever, and really, don't really have anything to prove. Just go out there, have fun. And of course, those guys opting not to qualify, the bulk of their position gains, of course, are all on that slower traffic. That's about 10 seconds per lap off the pace of that Lotus 79. But still, it's fun to say, hey, I gained up about 30 so positions in the Ava race over week 13.
Yeah, look at the Pro Mazda lead though, the top three now. Robert's backing up the throttle. Come on, Henry Robert. Oh, he had a shot there at least P2. I don't think he wants to win. I think it's rigged.
The thing is, let's. I think there's some WWF shenaniganry happening here. But the thing is, though, Johnny, is that when you're talking about one of these slipstream tracks, we've already seen these Pro Mazdas, David Dandolo, Craig Ridley, and in all honesty, Henry Robert, they've not been able to break away with one another. So the pace is so strong and the draft is so strong down the straightaways. If you're Henry Robert, is it really worth it trying to push and get your way into second or first place when you're likely just going to get slipstreamed on and have the move taken basically out from under you the very next lap? I know we've seen this, it's happened in NASCAR before as well, always talking about that at the likes of Daytona and Talladega. It's always a big talking point during the closing laps of the Indianapolis 500 due to the slipstream there in the Indy cars, both in real world and in the sim. And we've seen it in little smaller formula cars and smaller sports cars as well at tracks like Daytona and in the Indianapolis road course, and I'm sure it happens at Monza. Actually, I remember several years ago, Johnny, I believe it was Formula 2 or Formula 3 cars actually bump drafting their way around Monza, which was definitely interesting to see. Yeah. So just with the slipstream, I think it's mostly I think Henry Robert just realizes, if I'm not going to pick up the spots and run away, there's no point in really even challenging and risking going side by side. That said, it's been a pretty poor middle sector for Henry Robert because he's lost a bunch of time and then just closes it all up on the brakes in the bus stop.
Yeah, just one braking zone. He's back into the scrap. Only a couple of laps remaining here in this event. He's going to make the move shortly if he does have the pace for the lead, because that's another question there. Dandolo and Ridley are two very quick Pro Mazda drivers, and they're in a car as well, Randy, that they're very comfortable in too. So I guess, of course, as well for Robert, these are three Pro Mazda drivers who all know their strengths and weaknesses. They've been racing against each other for over a year. They definitely know where each driver's going to hurt, as Ridley now has a shot to reclaim P1.
Yep, he's going to take it as they work their way down the Kemmel straightaway. Let's see what Henry Robert does here, though, because this is going to be the 2-to-go signal for them. So if I were him, I'd maybe pick up the aggression just a little bit, but I don't think he's close enough. I think that sort of poor lap he had may have hurt his chances a little bit, as Craig Ridley is going to take the lead here. But he's only going to have one more shot in towards Lacombe, and then, of course, 2 more shots on the run through, say, Blanchimont into the bus stop here, Johnny. But for Henry Robert, his opportunities to pick up spots are quickly going away, and I think if he's going to get aggressive, it's going to happen on this final lap.
Certainly is. Robert as well just doesn't have the middle sector to really close in on the 2, because he could pull off a move into that bus stop. Well, the former bus stop, now the final chicane, and could also pull off a move in the Camel Straight if he wants to pick them off one by one, because it's going to be a tough asking for Henry Robert to climb up the order here if he has the pace for the lead. So that's your second class in Pro Mazda. For the Lotus 79s, Adam Fraser has a 2.6 second lead ahead of John Stevens in the second position. They've broken away from Charles-Eric Lemelin in that third position. Stefan Schlackler, don't forget, Schlackler, excuse me, had the first position for about a 5-10 minute period in this race, and unfortunately spun at the top of Eau Rouge. So his race took a turn for the worst. Arnoldas enters the pit lane late, so some issues for Martin Arnoldas. Not good for his event.
Yeah, really unfortunate for him for sure, but there's still, of course, that second race getting ready to happen. Let's see if these guys, maybe can qualify a little bit better. But, of course, white flag for these Pro Mazda drivers here before we go looking into the next event. David Dendelo and Craig Ridley, they need to have a race that they want to get sorted. I'm sure Henry Robert wants to be a part of their argument. He actually gets a good run out of La Source, so this might be a 3-wide scrap as they go into Lacombe at the end of the Camel Straight.
He's close across the main straight here. The timer ticking down to 0 as this race is about to end here. Here is the lead for the Pro Mazda class. Robert is close as well, heading for the lead here, looking for the outside. Robert has no room there around that outside line. Look at Dendelo hugging Ridley to the inside of the racetrack, squeezing him there on the apex as well. Robert has a shot here at P2, a bit too passive on the throttle there at the exit of Lacombe. And the top 3 there, for the first time heading into that battle into Lacombe, remain in those 3 positions. No changes, no swaps between those 3.
Yeah, it's actually a lot calmer than I expected it would be for those guys. And actually, they may get an extra lap out of this, depending on when Adam Fraser got that checkered flag. I'm not sure if he took the white yet or not, because he is actually still behind these guys going hell-bent for leather is Adam Fraser. He's actually on the run down towards Pouon. So that may have actually been 2 to go. I think the way the timer was, I don't know if he crossed the line at 30 minutes. So maybe we're getting a sort of weird extra lap here. We'll have to wait and see. I'm getting white flag on my end. But not sure just yet, because Fraser is still racing.
Well, let me tell you, he crossed the start-finish line 0.3 of a second after that 30-minute mark. So this technically right now, the white flag is being waved. So this should be the final lap of the event, and by 0.3 of a second could shape this race one way or another. Adam Fraser heads through Curb Paul Frere coming up right now, and he's driven a splendid race, Randy. He's coming through the final few corners, and we thought he had some issues.
They're nearly 3 wide for Pro Mazdas on the run into bus stop. Sorry about that. The 69 of David Dendelo sends it through the outside, and there's still going to be one more braking zone to go, this being the old layout on the run in towards La Source. We'll have to wait and see how they take a Rouge, if this is the final lap or not, but they're fighting like it could be.
Here they go through La Source there. Fraser is right behind, just about 10 seconds behind to claim the lead here. Dendelo ahead, though, of Ridley on the exit as the 3 continue, and they will cross the start-finish line. There'll be a lap remaining for these 3, but Fraser will cross the start-finish line. He will win the Week 13 special event, Ava's Race Against Cancer. What a win by Adam Fraser as he receives a checkered flag. But back to your action for the second class as well. Who will win this Pro Mazda class here as Robert remains passive in the 3rd position. Ridley around the outside, trying to make a move around Lacombe. Look at Henry Robert, who backs off as well. Ridley into P1.
Yeah, just not quite having the space with Henry Robert. I think he may have a little bit too much aero on that car, maybe just not quite getting the top end down the straightaway, because having the double slipstream, he should be able to just about sling by going at the end of that Camel straightaway, but struggling is, of course, Henry Robert. Then again, it may just be David Dendelo and Craig Ridley, maybe more than comfortable having those cars totally trimmed out. maybe an issue for that 28 machine. Craig Ridley, though, David Dendelo, though, who's in that second spot. He's lost a little bit of time through this middle sector, Johnny, but he'll have one more drafting opportunity on the run into bus stop, and actually a fairly decent one going into La Source as well.
Robert is confident on the brakes, isn't he, heading into that final chicane? But this battle will continue like it did last lap. It's going to go down to the final couple of corners here. That final chicane. What about La Source too? So while these three battle, Jake Feineman has also won the Renault 2.0 class ahead of Denny Rimple in the second position for the Renault 2.0. So that class is sealed. It's this class where there is no clear winner heading into the final corners. David Dendelo looking racy, looking confident. The man from Belgium for the lead here. Into the final chicane. Shoots it perfectly. Delivered. Dendelo into the first position. Ridley has one more shot here heading into La Source. Strong on the brakes is Craig Ridley, going for the switchback. It's going to be a drag race to the start-finish line. Ridley, though, looks to have the advantage. How about this for a finish for your Pro Master class, as Craig Ridley, by just half a tenth of a second, takes the win for Ava's Race Against Cancer for your Pro Mazda division. What a finish there, Randy. Dendelo went ultra defensive, and I think Ridley just pushed that little bit extra and put the pressure on Dendelo in the 69 car.
He definitely did, and that was absolutely a perfectly executed cutback. I want to get that on the replay, actually. We have the Delta up on screen, and we're going to watch this work in effect as he goes through into this final run in towards the source. You see Craig Ridley working on David Dendelo right here. You're going to see Dendelo swing over to the right hand, stay right, while Craig Ridley goes way wide. You see Dendelo misses the apex a little bit, has to push wide on the exit. Ridley able to pick that throttle up and has a slightly shorter run going down that straightaway towards the old school start finish line in Eau Rouge, Johnny. And I think just that little earlier throttle application and actually that slightly shorter run he has being on the right side of the track, that's what decided it in the end.
Wow, what a finish here. It's always close, isn't it, on iRacing, especially when it comes to your Pro Mazda community. Let's have a look at your final race results for Ava's Race Against Cancer. Adam Fraser takes the victory for your first race this evening. Of course, don't forget there are 2 races taking place here for your Week 13 special event. John Stevens came home in the second position. Stevens actually had a shot here at taking victory in that Lotus 79 class, along with Stefan Schlacker in that 4th position. Lemelin came home with a podium, but never really had an attempt at the lead. And what an event from Peter Kuznitsny, who came home in 5th after starting from the 34th position at the back end of 3 classes here today. Brenton Parker, our race organizer, came home in 7th, of course, as well. Your Pro Master class included Craig Ridley, who came home overall 9th, but ended up winning there in a drag race across the start-finish line, along with David Dendelo. And Henry Ribeiro, although passive in that race, came home in the 3rd position and still claimed a very confident podium for Robert, who was very likely to take a victory depending on his pace, but never got it done. Now, who knows where Jean-Michel Nayon would have ended up had he not had some early race troubles. For your Formula Renault 2.0 class, it's Jake Feineman in the 1st position ahead of Denny Rimple in 2nd. That advantage was by quite a margin between those two, as Feineman led every single lap of the event from pole position for your Renault 2.0 class. The podium went to Douglas Ritter in the 3rd position. He cleaned it up, and he ended up claiming a very confident podium regardless for himself there, of course. And Randy, final things before we go into interviews here today was your Renault 2.0 class. Feineman untouched. She actually finished ahead of a lot of Pro Mazda cars. That Renault 2.0 car, although slower than the Pro Mazda, isn't 5 seconds slower a lap. It's actually just maybe a second or 2 slower around Spa. So it's a pretty pretty close advantage, you have to say, between the two cars. Or not advantage, sorry, similarities and comparisons.
Yeah, I think we're dealing with, of course, the cars themselves are different and have some differences in pace for sure, but there's also some, I never want to say, oh my God, these drivers are so bad, but there is some driver talent sort of, I think, differences at work as well. That's going to play a pretty big part in the couple second or so per lap difference that there may be. So the fastest Formula Renaults will probably be mixing up with some of the mid-pack and slower Pro Mazda guys. That's really what we saw. Unfortunately, our Formula Renaults just, I don't know if they got spread out because they were in amongst the Pro Mazda guys, but didn't really have the most exciting race amongst themselves and really weren't mixing it up with the Pro Mazdas either from what we saw. They pretty much got strung out and was sort of unfortunate as we have a handful of interviews getting lined up.
So we have Brenton Parker here, who came home in the 7th position. Brenton, I don't know if you want to speak about your race or the race itself, or Ava's race against cancer. How did your race go, first of all?
Well, it was pretty good. I'm trying to get the second leg of it set up now, because we're doing the double header. I'm probably gonna owe you guys a few bucks because I think we're running a few minutes long here. Hold on one second. Will, quiet. Sorry, my kid's making all kinds of noise here, and I'm trying to manage the grid here for the previous race. Hang on one second. Yeah, it was a good race, though. I ran out of fuel at the end. William, I need you to be quiet, buddy. Go in the other room. Sorry. Let's see here. For some reason, it's not letting me add. I don't know. Tell you what, man. Can you get back to me? I need.
Yeah, we'll get back to you. You can. We'll have some downtime between the races, so we can.
All right, I'm trying to go as quick as I can for you guys.
Go for it, Matt. Don't worry about us. Here. You just get everything sorted with them.
All right.
There's no stress. We'll leave Brenton Parker alone for the time being. He's got a lot to handle there.
I think the world's ending over wherever he is.
I think it's Independence Day. So he came home in the 7th position overall there for your Lotus 79s. Stefan Schlacker, who came home 4th, had the lead for most of this race. Stefan, can we speak to you quickly? How do you feel after binning it at the top of Eau Rouge there? You had the advantage. You had all the pace. You must be kicking yourself after that.
Kinda yes, kinda no. It's my first race for about, 2 months or so, so it's quite an exciting start to go back to racing again. But my heart was racing. I don't blame myself for the incident. It's just hard racing, just so much excitement leading. It had to come.
And if you're ready, you have anything else to ask Stefan for this race?
No, we pretty much sort of had a pretty decent race going, and I think we just caught a curb incorrectly and got the short stick on that one. So very good opening race for you, Stefan. So think you'll be able to make it a few positions better in the second one?
Hey, go all in or go home. That's the plan for the second race.
Well, there you go. That's going to be an exciting one for him.
Can I ask, do the morning conditions make anything different with the day-night transitions? Any visibility issues?
No, not at all, but the grip was so much better than in the afternoon practice sessions that I was in. So over the top of Radillon, it was so much better, but still had, sadly, that issue there.
Yeah, fair enough. So that was Stefan Schlacker, who should have won, maybe, possibly, overall in the Lotus 79 class, but he'll be, he's not limiting that too much. He's already focused on race number 2. So we'll speak to you later, Stefan. Thanks for joining us here today for this event. The next person that we'll speak to is your Pro Mazda aficionado, your savant, your connoisseur, your seasoned veteran, your expert, Martin Nordis, who started this race from 33rd. Now, Martin, what happened to you towards the end of the event? You made that late pit stop. You're in the top 10. Did something happen there with fuel, or did you have some damage?
First, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. We're all good.
Yeah. Like Brenton said, kids, I just stepped in. I had no practice at all. I've moved to a new house, so it's really messy in my sim room now. So I just wanted to race this one because for the good cause and have fun. And I was pretty yeah. I don't know. In Holland we can say shit. Is it alright? But anyway, it was a fun race at the back with Peter, so it was really crazy. It's like Le Mans if you want to pass everyone, and at the end, yeah, 2 less gallons. It's my own mistake. So I came in the pits, and then I had a black flag because of the pit stop and go penalty. So I thought I focused on the next race.
Apologies for that, by the way. I don't think you can say that, so we have to probably apologize. The thing I want to ask next is, what happened to you in qualifying? Why did you start so... Did you just want to start from last and make your way up the order? Because it was a very chaotic making your way past the slower cars of the Pro Mazdas and the Renault 2.0. So what came across with that decision?
Just forgot the time. I was just tapping in on the computer, and everyone is qualifying. So, but last time was on the Nordschleife. We get packed in the same class. So if you had no qualifying time, you get packed from in your own class from behind. But this time it was from all the back. So it was driving Le Mans. Le Mans feels the same.
So there's Martin Arnoldus, who should have came home in the top 10, but had some late race issues, as he described there. Thanks for joining us, Martin. Good luck for race 2, of course, as well. The last driver we'll speak to before we take a break here today will be Mehdi El Fathi, who came home... I'm trying to calculate this. Came home down the order in your Pro Mazda class. Talk about your race, Mehdi. Was it dramatic from your starting position? 11th place overall in the Pro Mazda class.
So basically, when I entered the qualifying session, well, I didn't expect everyone to run at the same time. So I wasn't really used to it, very much due to the lack of experience. And in the end, I went to qualify in 4th position, which was not a bad position. And through the first lap, I managed to gain a few positions. I was up to P2, and in the second sector, I didn't expect some of the Lotus 79 back markers to be a bit slower than usual, and I didn't expect one of them to slow down, and I just put on the brakes and I lost the rear, and that was it for a proper race.
And anything you're looking forward to for race 2 that you're going to improve on from race 1? Any errors you might have made? Any setup adjustments you might even make?
Maybe some more rear wing. Maybe I will need a bit more downforce to compensate for the loss of front downforce on the draft. And we'll see. I am not really sure about the starting position in race 2, but I'm rather confident, and we'll see how it goes.
So that was Mehdi El Fathi, who came home 11th in your Pro Mazda division. Thanks for joining us. Good luck in race 2, of course, as well. Randy, any final thoughts before we head over to our ad break, before we head to race 2 here? It was a pretty chaotic first race, but it was pretty well driven. I think a lot of respect between all the drivers. Good driving standards out there.
Yeah, there definitely was. All I can say is that it was a pretty good show. Not a lot of drama, of course. Couple kind of isolated incidents, but that's always going to be expected. All I can say is be sure to not go away, because we're essentially running it straight back here in about 10 minutes.
We will, so do not leave us. You're watching Ava's Race Against Cancer, a Week 13 special event here live on RaceSpotTV. We'll see you soon.
Welcome back here to RaceSpotTV. Is this a very, very quick turnaround for Ava's race against Cancer as we are getting gridded up for race number 2. As you can see, things are going to be interesting. Pretty much a fully randomized grid. Mazda cars, I believe, are at the head of the field, which means Lotus 79s and Formula Renaults will be in the depth of the pack. Once again, we have a 30-minute race. I do not have time to go down your full starting grid. I apologize, but it will be a 30-minute long race just like we just had. We have all the cars on the grid, and we are getting ready to go green. Carlos Medina will be out front with Steve Cubet in second. Green flag flies, or we are underway for race number 2. Let's hope we can keep the drama down as the Lotus 79s will be amongst everybody as they work up the hill. Through Eau Rouge for the first 9. Pro Mazda's fanning out all over the place. You see our first of the Lotus 79s trying to slice through. The 31 car goes off into the distance on the grass. Everyone's still okay and running as they work down the Kevel straightaway for the first time. Pro Mazda's, oh, we got drama for Simpson. I believe that was in class. I do not think that there was a Lotus 79 involved with that one. That was Carlos Medina involved in that incident. Bulk of the car is still out there and running though. Martin Arnoldis is slow at Lacombe. He has damage, so there's a pretty big incident down there at that first corner as the entire field is going to be working their way now through the Speaker's Corner sector on the racetrack and down towards Boulogne. Big drama at the start of that one. So let's look at the head of the Pro Mazda field. It was Steve Cubet who is leading. Actually, no, I take that back. It's Colin Jackson who's technically leading this field. It's going to take us a little bit for our live timing to actually update. Let's check in with some of our front runners from that first race. Let's see. Adam Frazier is actually off the racetrack. He has damage. John Stevens is still out there. Stefan Schlacker, he's still out there and running. I believe we may be missing one that I've been unable to find. I think one of our drivers that was involved with that front fight in race number 1 is actually not yet in the server or is no longer on the racetrack. You see Carlos Medina, who is leading that Formula Mazda field. Deep down towards the tail end with tons of damage as the entire pack is going to come through this opening lap. See a number of the Lotus 79 still struggling to get past those first couple of Pro Mazdas. When I say a couple of Lotus 79s, a more correct term would be all of them. Timing will be updating here in just a moment, so we'll be able to give you a little bit more educated guess of who's who and who's where. See a couple cars peeling off on towards pit road with some damage. You see a train of Lotuses trying to set up a Formula Mazda going up Eau Rouge. Ticker will be going across on the top of your screen. It's currently Jim Lakey who leads the way in the Lotus 79 with Brenton Parker in that second spot, Stefan Schlacker third, Charles Eric Lemelin in the fourth spot, and Peter Kozinski in fifth. We saw Peter have a bit of a decent run, as you see. Very tight conditions on the run down in towards Lacombe. Everyone is going to just about get it stopped. Formula Renault, excuse me, is Jean-Pierre Helpap, who currently leads the way. Second in that is actually the winner from the first race, Jake Feinerman. Keep in mind, like we said during race number 1, it's very difficult between these sort of two middle-class categories, Formula Renault and the Pro Mazda. Very similar in terms of pace, and that makes it somewhat difficult for them to keep with one another, and you're going to expect to see some Pro Mazdas actually fighting it with the Formula Renaults pretty much all race long. We get the Lotus 79s once again checking back in towards this sort of end of the middle sector. Jim Lakey still in second. Brenton Parker, or excuse me, still leading. Brenton Parker still in second. Stefan Schlacker third. Charles Lemelin in fourth. Peter Kozinski rounding out that top 5. Through down now on the run in towards Blanchemont. Starting to get themselves sorted out. You still see the 13 car getting swallowed up by Lotus 79s. That is Colin Jackson. As Colin gets rounded up by cars that are the mastermind of Colin Chapman. So his fellow Colin not doing him any help here as he works off through the bus stop chicane to get ready for lap number 3. Of course, the bus stop not the final corner on this layout that they're running here today. This corner is here at the top of the hill. It's La Source. So you see Jim Lakey's going to have the lead. Brenton Parker, though, will be leading a long train of Lotuses. Actually, no, I take that back. That's Stefan Schlacker leading that long train of Lotuses. Brenton has fallen back into P number 3. Charles Lemelin fourth, with Peter and John rounding out your top 6. Here's one of our drivers that was involved in that Pro Mazda scrap in the first race, David Dendelo. He's gotten his way up to P number 4 in class. Steve Cubet has worked his way up the field very nicely as well. He's actually dropped 8 spots, but holding on to the 3rd spot in class. John Michael-Nguyen, who we've seen be very, very quick in these cars before, has settled into P2. It's a little ways off of Colin Jackson, so a very hectic start. Colin's going to work her way down the hill. Jan-Pierre Helpap, your Formula Renault leader. See Scott Spittle, Hayden Gober in that category. Jake Feinerman just about a second back in the other Formula Renault car in P number 2. You also have Delkin Edey, Danny Rimple, Douglas Ritter, and RJ Asmer. I believe that is 6 Formula Renault cars we have in race number 2. And then we're in towards Pujon now for the 3rd time. And through now up towards the Piff Paff chicane. You see that number 30 car, just a bit of a quick shake back and forth trying to get through there. The difficulties here of trying to get through this traffic. Of course, one of the other big things potentially to keep in mind is talk about the fact that these cars have similar pace. There might be differences, not only more subtle differences in how they make the speed. One of them may have more downforce, the other one may have more top end. Let's find out. The Pro Mazdas were just all over Jean-Pierre through that middle sector. And John isn't really dropping a lot of time down the straightaway. As a matter of fact, he's making it up. So definitely seems like the Formula Renaults have a little bit of an advantage in terms of top end as they run through Blanchimont and the run down in towards the bus stop. I believe we're about to watch that Pro Mazda pretty much blow the wheels off this number 7 car on the brakes. Pretty much what happens. You see exactly how much they end up clothing themselves up. So what a start for these guys. Oh, we got a car around in the background. Who is that? We got 2 cars around in the background. Steve Sarles. He's around at Blanchimont. There's big damage here. We're going to focus on this one. The other one, I believe, just a solo spinner in the bus stop, but big damage here on this number 32 Johnny Player Special car. Steve Sarles was the one behind the wheel, and he just flat out lost the rear end going through Blanchimont. Didn't catch the curb or anything like that. Just probably cold tires on the rear end, and pretty much all she wrote. As we're getting a battle for the race lead here in the Lotus 79, Stefan Schlacker out here reeling in Jim Lakey. Of course, Stefan, one of the quicker drivers in that first race. One point seemed to pretty much have the race locked up, but the spin at the top of a Rouge really hurt him. You see a little bit of damage on that front left of this GSRC Lotus 79. It's through here, the Piff Pass chicane on the run down in towards Stavlo 1 and 2. Or rather, Stavlo and Curve Paul Freya. And let's see what Stefan can do here. Coming off this second right-hander, he'll have the slipstream on the run now down in towards Blanchimont. And you see that GSRC car just gobbling up real estate. And up the inside goes the 08 machine, and Schlacker's going to lead race number 2. Within about the first 9 minutes, coming to the end of lap number 4. Meanwhile, down here, Pro Mazda, it's still Colin Jackson leading the way. John Michael Nguyen has done a very good job reeling in that 13 car. So that gap is closed in nicely as they work their way through Blanchimont. Get a nice run off the corner and get a good run down in towards the bus stop. John Michael thinking of throwing the move, but he's actually going to back out of it in that green, light green, and red MX-5 racing car. Here comes David Dendelo. One of the drivers involved in that scrap, of course, in that first race. There's a couple drivers I don't see in this race here. They're well down the order. Craig Ridley here is one of them, winner of race number 1. He's shown 1 minute and 6 seconds back, so I believe he got some damage on that opening lap and is pretty much at the tail end of the field, unfortunately. So will not be in amongst the battle for the race win here in race number 2, as that's pretty much the first 10 minutes already done and rounded out. 13 car, though, going to fight with, I believe that's lap traffic, indeed he is, that 72 car. Well down the order, not part of this lead fight, of course, is part of the same category. You got a Formula Renault battle starting, though, as that's Jean-Pierre Helpap and Jake Feineman. Didn't really see this during race number 1. They pretty much all got spread out. And you see the 909 car. That's Dan Kisnet as well as Scott Speidel. They're in this fight as well. And while they are technically separated out by classes, they are on the same lap. And those are technically passes for overall position. So these 4, even though they're different, completely different cars in different categories, they are duking it out here for what is essentially 12th through 15th on the racetrack. In towards Pouhon, you see the Formula Renault cars nicely pulling away here through this middle sector, so maybe having the legs just ever so slightly at this phase of the run. Checking back in with our Lotuses, Stefan Schlacker. Not been able to stretch the gap the way I thought he might be able to here in this second race over Jim Lakey. Charles Eric Lemelin doing a good job as well. John Stevens in this fight as well. Actually, Stevens just picked up that 3rd spot. Peter Kaczynski not far back, as well as Brenton Parker. Little ways back, but still ever so relevant. Their timing will officially update to give that 24 car that 3rd position. Let's look down the order a little bit, see what fights we have. I see a car with Germany written on the rear wing and a flag that looks particularly German. That's Ollie Rodigan dealing with Declan Eady on the run down in towards the bus stop. So through the bus stop chicane and come across the stripe is that Formula Renault. See a bit of damage on the front of that car. Still checking back in this lead for the Pro Mazdas. I believe we're going to see it switch right here as John Michael Noyon gets a fantastic run coming off of Eau Rouge and Radillon and down the Kemmel straightaway. You see that 111 car pulling off to the right-hand side. At his driver's left, technically, and as they work into Lorcombe, can Noyon run the outside line? Indeed, he can. I believe Colin Jackson somewhat facilitated that move, made it a little bit easy. So the 111 car will lead the Pro Mazda division roughly half distance into race number 2. So through Speaker's Corner and on the run down in towards Pouhon, they will go once again in your Pro Mazdas, and they stay pretty much single file and more or less getting themselves separated out. I think while it added some drama in the opening laps, unfortunately the way the starting grid was formed is really, I think, separating this race out. The quick drivers that got lucky and started up near the front, they're pretty much just checking out on this one, but we still have, of course, this second, third, fourth place fight in the Lotus 79s. It looked like it's going to be a good one all the way down to the wire. Up toward the Rouge once again. Jim Lakey trying to keep that 24 car John Stevens in the rearview mirror. Stevens has a good run though, working down the Kemmel straight once again. Lakey's going to defend the right hand side, going to make Stevens do it the long way around. Definitely the good option, and that 24 car will just about get clear of that 696. So move Jim Lakey back into position number 3, but I don't think he's done and dusted just yet. With the slipstream, he'll be able to bring the fight back towards John Stevens. That said, you have Charles Eric Lemelin charging ever so aggressively here. In that airlock car, I believe is what that says on the rear wing. Now through Speaker's Corner in the 138. Actually, I take that back. Charles Lemelin has the speed on Jim Lakey. Lakey has fallen from the rear of that 24 car. No move being made in towards Puo, and I think the door was open. Through the Piff Paff chicane, still waiting on when Charles Lemlin is gonna make that move. Will be here through Stavilo. I'm not sure. Nothing going just yet. Seems like the answer is gonna be no. You do have Peter Kaczynski here working ever so closely, and he's been lapping roughly on pace with these guys. And he's actually been lapping quicker than Jim Lakey, so that's an important thing to notice. Race 2, though, is already halfway in the books. 15 minutes down, 15 minutes to go. Just 7 laps remaining. See that number 36 car. Pro Mazda machine, got VRS branding on the rear wing, letting all these hyper quick Lotuses slip on through. See that number 32 Lotus 79 as well. That car is not in this fight whatsoever. As down the hill they're going to go once again. The 696 still doing a good job holding on to his position in third. Charles Lemlin trying to pick it up, and Peter Kaczynski has made Lemlin's job oh so difficult by making himself a factor. To the outside though, Lemlin's going to try it on the run down in towards Lacombe. Pulls out pretty early going down into this stretch. And let's see what happens. He's already pretty much clear before they're ever through the braking zones to move that 138 car in towards that third position. Jim Lakey falls into fourth, which means Peter Kaczynski, I've been butchering this name all night. Peter moves into P number 4, or excuse me, 5, fighting for P number 4. Let's check back in with your Pro Mazda, Colin Jackson. He's actually done a very good job keeping John Michael Noyon honest, but not really having the pace to be overly aggressive and make moves. He's going to have the slipstream here going down in towards Lacombe. Might actually be able to make something of this just with the amount of drag these Formula Mazdas generate. Does he make something happen on the run in towards Lacombe? No, he can't. And I think John Michael will likely be able to open this gap for the rest of this lap. You still have David Dendelo here in third. He's managed to slip through the drama. He started 32nd on the grid, whereas these drivers are currently up front. Colin Jackson, who's in second, started 4th. John Michael Noyon started 6th. So David Dendelo has gotten through all sorts of drama and cataclysm to only being about 3 or 4 seconds off the back of his lead in class. David Dendelo, by the way, he's been turning off lap times. The 2:15 second bracket, roughly half a second per lap quicker than these guys out in front of him. Matter of fact, John Michael Noyon, he's lapping in the 16, so nearly a half a second to a full second per lap is what David Dendelo is reeling in. Jake Feinerman, by the way, has found his way back to the race lead in the Formula Renaults. Jean-Pierre Helpap is back into the second spot. Douglas Ritter and Del Canidi make up third and fourth well down the order. Their races don't seem to be going nearly to plan at the moment. So let's see as they come down now in towards the bus stop chicane. John Michael Noyon, what kind of lap time did he do this time to maybe not necessarily hold off that 13 car, but as well as that 69 of David Dendelo? Of course, I'm making the classic mistake of continuing to forget that the bus stop is not the final corner. So through a source and on the run down towards this front straightaway comes that 111 of John Michael Noyon. Lap time is going to be a 2 minute and 16.1. Little bit better for John Michael Noyon, but Dave Dendelo is going to slot in a 2:15.7. Thing is, though, does he have the time? It's about a 4-second gap between John Michael Noyon and David Dendelo, and I don't think Dendelo at 4/10 of a second per lap is going to be able to reel in that 111 car. Not with only 11 minutes left on the clock. That's only about 5 laps that he's going to have to work with. You see Colin Jackson actually pushing a little bit wide That might help Dendelo's chances a little bit, because the sooner he can get the slipstream of that 13 car, the sooner he can start peeling off a couple of slightly quicker lap times. So I think that little mistake that we just saw the 13 make might help out David Dendelo just a little bit if he can get that draft on the 13 car just ever so sooner. Checking back in now with the Lotus 79s. John Stevens is in second. Charles Lemelin is in third. Peter is in P number 4. He has wrestled that position off from Jim Lakey, who's in 5th. And then in 6th spot is currently Brenton Parker. Next is Fabio Berchtold, who is well down the order in the 11th spot overall. So there's 4 Pro Mazdas between himself and Brenton. Then you get Martin Arnoldus, who not having a great race once again here in race number 2. Well down the order in 23rd position after starting 9th. Sort of the exact opposite of the race 1 that he had. So let's see what happens. Has David Dendelo been able to reel in Colin Jackson whatsoever to have that slipstream? He's definitely close, and I think he'll be feeling it this time. The thing is, though, is that with this draft is that he's going to have to get around and get past Colin Jackson as quickly as he can. And with them fighting for 2nd spot, I don't think Jackson's going to be particularly, let's say, friendly about letting that position go. You still, by the way, have Hayden Gobert a few more seconds back, running in that 4th spot. I believe technically teammates with Colin. Let's take a peek at the lap times. They come now down towards the timing beam once again. The 111, with roughly 4 laps to go in the race, ticks off a 2:16.0. David Dendelo goes to a 2:15.4. That's more in the time bracket that he needs to be peeling off. Colin Jackson, a 17.6. So up to Kemmel Straight, they will now go once again. Dendelo has the draft. Will he be able to make the move here in towards Lacombe? He has to do it this time, I think. He's going to look to dive it up the inside, but no. That door gets slammed on him, and that's going to be costing David Dendelo right there so much time. That might have just handed John Michael Noyon the win in that one. As down in towards Bracels, the 69 will dive it up the inside. The 13 trying to squeeze him down low, as Dendelo will push him back out wide, and he'll have the long line through Speaker's Corner. But if he can keep the momentum up, he can hold on to the position, and being a little liberal with the track limits, he will take that 2nd spot away. So David Dendelo, a man on a mission right now, who has gone from 32nd on this grid into 9th place overall. So through now, in towards Stabilo, Dendelo will come. He's going to be working as hard as he can to bring that gap down and in. It's about 4 seconds, and he has about 3.5 laps to try and do it. I don't think Dendelo is going to have the pace. Meanwhile, in Lotus 79s, the gap is not nearly 4 seconds. It is a 1 second margin between John Stevens and Stefan Schlacker. Schlacker doing a good job just managing this gap. Oh, but Schlacker's a little bit wide, and he makes another mistake while leading 2 races in a row. Stefan Schlacker, while having the race lead, ends up making a big mistake that costs him replay up. What happened to him going through Speaker's Corner? That happened so far down the straightaway. See him running a little bit wide. Oh, he just gets oversteer and then a little bit too happy on the throttle. I want to rewind this a little further back, and we're going to slow this replay down ever so slightly when he gets a little closer to the apex of that corner. So through Bracels, you see the line is good, but this is where the problems begin to start. He turns into Speaker's Corner and gets so tight at the apex. You see him run a little bit wide. Then he gets loose on that curbing, gets on the grass, picks the throttle up when the left side tires are on the asphalt, right side is on the grass. And that is something you really can't do in these old school style cars. Just get all sorts of wheel spin on the one side. And that basically means that the left tires will hook up, the right tires are going to be spinning in the grass. And whenever that happens, car is just going to basically spit you out to the left-hand side. So for John Stevens, with coming to pretty much 3 laps to go, he's doing laps in about the 2:07, 2.8 range every single time, 6 minutes on the clock. 3 laps left in this thing to go. He'll have a nice little comfortable lead over Charles Eric Lemelin. But this Charles push, it's a 1.8 second gap, and Charles is actually 0.7 of a second quicker that last time through. Of course, Stevens may have sort of backed off on his pace just a little bit because of that spinning car in front of him down at Speaker's Corner. Checking back in with the Formula Renaults, it's still Jake Feinerman leading the way. Jean-Pierre Helpap in that second spot. John-Michael Noyon continues to lead here as David Dendelo has not been able to get away from Colin Jackson, and in fact, they are fighting it out for this second spot. So Jean-Michael Noyon pretty much has this win locked up as Colin Jackson's moving up the inside here at Blanchemont. You see both of them giving each other a lot of room, and David Dendelo is going to wrestle that spot away from Colin Jackson as they work into the bus stop chicane. A replay of that coming up on your screen. Watch this with David Dendelo as you're going to see this move on the right-hand side. Sees that car on the left, he gives him a little bit extra space, and he's going to use that runoff to his advantage. We'll watch the same perspective on board with Colin Jackson this time. So you should see on the right-hand side of your screen at some point that left front tire of David Dendelo start to poke into the frame. Colin Jackson in the periphery, you really can't even see it on the screen, but David Dendelo able to just squeak by on the run in towards the bus stop. That was a fantastic move for him to be able to hold on to that. So these guys remain at nose to tail through Lacombe. Only a couple of minutes left in this race, only a couple laps left in this race. Where is John Stevens? He's going to be getting the 2 to go signal right now. No real fights in your Lotus 79 category. The only fight on track is actually between between David Dendelo and Colin Jackson. What happened to Colin? Look away for just a moment, and it looks like it was Speaker's Corner that reached out and bit Colin Jackson. What happened to him on board with this Action Sim Sport car? What happens here? We saw one class leader. Oh, and this one is the exact opposite incident. It's such an easy mistake to make down at this end of the racetrack, especially on a track where in these cars you're going to be trimming out that rear wing as much as you possibly can. Just watch this 13 car. You're going to see him just turn in and get a huge bite of oversteer. I think that right rear tire just catches that curb. You see it just stepping out sideways, and there's almost nothing you can do to bring this back in and under control. It is so difficult of a slide to be able to save. And then that's all she wrote. So once the car is pretty much pointing that direction and into the wall for the number 13 car. Unfortunate mistake for him. That will give David Dendelo that second spot comfortably as they get that 2 to go signal. The 24 John Stevens, I believe, is getting ready to work towards the white flag. It's been roughly 2 minute and 7 second lap times every single time through. And with just under 2 minutes on the clock, this should indeed be the signal. We did end up with about an extra lap, though, in the first race, so don't want to count our chickens before they hatch. We got one of our Lotus 79 spinning off in the background. I believe that may have been Jim Lakey. Indeed, it was. What happened here? Coming through the bus stop chicane. This may have just been the classic picking the throttle up too soon. Let's have a listen. That's all it is, just wheel spin on the second part of the bus stop chicane for him. Should be light damage on the nose of that car, but should be able to, at the very least, limp it home. He does have, I believe that's Brenton Parker. No, it's Steve Sarr. No, I take that back. It is Brenton Parker. Oh, as I just mentioned him, Brenton Parker makes a mistake at the top of Eau Rouge. Brenton, a bit of a pro Mazda driver. He'll pretty much tell you in his own right. Not really someone who drives these Lotus 79s particularly often. He does it pretty much just for fun. See him through a rouge and just a little bit sideways to the center of the corner, and that was well held to not smack that outside wall. But for John Stevens, we need to keep an eye here, see if this is the end of this race or not. Through Stavlo 1 and 2, John Stevens just has gotten a little bit of luck and has managed to work his way towards the front of this field. Let's see, the count clock continues to count down. 5 seconds left. That should be zeroed out by the time they are through the bus stop chicane, and indeed it will be. So this is being registered as the final lap in our timing data, but it is so close, it is possible, and the sim has done this before, that we might end up with an extra lap. Let's see what happens with John Stevens. Do we take the checkered flag here, as the 138 actually, and Charles Lemelin has made himself very relevant on the back end of this 24 car, and they're going to come down and should I believe be taking the checkered flag. And that is indeed going to be the situation. That is a big lift from John Stevens on the run in towards the rouge. Charles Eric Lemelin did everything he could to try to get there. Jake Feinerman, who currently leads the Formula Renaults, is working through Lacombe, which means their next class leader to finish will be the 111 car of Jean-Michel Noyon, who is working his way around Pujon at the moment and in towards the Piff Poff chicane. As the rest of the field continues working their way, you see a bunch of Lotus 79s at this end of the racetrack. Those Pro Mazdas and any Formula Renaults you see were all slower traffic that have finished. Those were not class leaders. And here comes Mr. Jean-Michel Noyon in towards the final, pretty much starting the final sector here. Just Blanchimont, the bus stop, and La Source to go for this 111 machine. David Dendelo, I think, will frustratingly end up with 2 second-place finishes in a row. First one losing it on the final corner after taking the lead in the second to final corner. And this one, of course, pretty much a fully randomized grid. Means more or less that, well, he drew the short stick and had to run his way through the field. But for the 111 car of Jean-Michel Noyon, just one more braking zone and throttle application to go, and he will have this race victory locked up in that 111 in the Pro Mazdas. As we take a peek to the Formula Renaults, they work their way in towards the final sector as well, and Jake Feinerman try to get some more talking to him over the course of this race. Talking about him in this race, kind of missed the Formula Renaults in that first one due to all the drama in the Lotuses and in the Pro Mazdas. Jake Feinerman, he's going to work his way down this start-finish straight, and he will win in the Formula Renault as well. So big victories all around, and let's go ahead and take a quick peek down our post-race results. Let's do it by class this time. John Stevens takes victory in the Lotus 79 with Charles Eric Lemelin in second. Peter Kaczynski in third with Jim Lakey fourth. Brenton Parker, Spawn Schlacker rounding out your top six. Seventh place was Fabio Berchtold with Martin Arnoldis, Steve Sarles, and Dwayne Berenzer rounding out the top 10. And then Adam Frazier will round out the 11-car field there. Pro Mazdas coming up on your screen at the moment. You see taking the race win there, Jean-Michel Noyon with David Dendelo in second. Hayden Gober in third. Henry Robert in fourth. David Knezek will round out your top five. Scott Speidel, Ollie Rotkin, Pascal Filotto, Neil Dawkins, and Craig Ridley rounding out the top 10. Carlos Medina, Rick Hansen, Steve Kube, Alaric Vandenbos, John Parker, Colin Jackson. Unfortunately, just getting an incident with just a few laps remaining while fighting for that second spot. John Paul Bonadonna and Mehdi Al-Fati rounds out the last position in that class. Means all that's left is the handful of Formula Renaults we had. Jake Feinerman wins that class. I believe that is back-to-back for him. John-Pierre Helpap, Doug Ritter, Del Canidi, Danny Rimple, and R.G. Asmar rounding out the category there. Let's jump over to some post-race interviews. And the man who unfortunately had back-to-back poor results in this one after leading at one point was the driver of Stefan Schlacker. We are stood by now with him. Stefan, bad luck in both of your races. You get to the race lead both times, and you end up just catching the short end of the stick. Both times, I think, on a curb. The first one at Eau Rouge, this one tonight, or in the second race, coming through Speaker's Corner. Talk me through that incident.
Well, I have to give all credit to John there. He was pushing me so hard. I was running a setup with more downforce than he was. He was catching me so fast in the straight, so I had to really push it through the turns. And yeah, no-name corner. I was running a ground there on the curb. And yeah, I wasn't able to save it, sadly. But yeah, it's all credits go to John there. He was just pushing me beyond my limits there.
And I'm talking about this as a Week 13 event. This is one of those things that, of course, happens in a variety of the communities on iRacing. Every single build release, there's always new features, new cars, and there's oftentimes you'll see a handful of communities kind of come together and sort of do one big race. I know this was mostly put together by the Pro Mazda community, but I'm sure some Lotus guys and Formula Renault guys jumped in for this as well. How fun of an event is this? One, for just it's such a good cause, and two, just a unique format with the Lotuses and the Pro Mazdas and the Formula Renaults all on track at once, especially with the pandemonium that was the starting grid for race number 2.
These events are just so great because it's just pure fun. You have these custom, weird cars put together, race against each other like the classic guys do with the Audi, the Nissan, and the Lotus 49 and Lotus 79. It's just so much great fun to just race and have fun together and just enjoy what you're all doing together, but just in one race all at the same time. It's just so much great fun.
Well, thanks for joining us, Stefan. Sorry that you had the short end of the stick on luck once again, but you put on a good show for nearly an hour of racing here tonight on Race Spot. So before we let you go, do you have any shout-outs that you would like to make following this one?
Yeah, obviously, shout-out goes to Brenton Parker for putting up this race for a very great cause here. Obviously, you guys for broadcasting, and obviously my main guys at Cheese RC, have to thank them too.
Well, there he was, Stefan Schlacker and his main men over at GSRC, leading both of the races at some point tonight. Look for them, and of course, all their races at the Global Sim Racing channel and on the iRacing Esports Network in 2019. Of course, going to be a big year, I think, for all of us. A couple other drivers to talk to. We got Hayden Gober on the line. Let's see if we can just confirm where he ended up. Hayden, it was a pretty decent run for you. 3rd place in your class in Pro Mazda. Talk me through race number 2 there in that number 30 car. You started 26th, which I think is a Formula Mazda car is probably about the best point on the grid to be. Very minimal amount of Lotus 79 starting behind.
Yeah, it was extremely wild. I've done a lot of multi-class racing, and that was the craziest couple of laps I've ever done on here. But yeah, once everything calmed down, it was pretty chill. David Dendelo got past me when I was kind of tangled with the Formula Renault leader at the time, and he unfortunately broke the draft really quickly. He was already gone by the time I got past the Formula Renault there, and yeah, it was just tough. It was, but it was good fun. It was hilarious.
Yeah, it was an exciting start. Unfortunately, the way the start worked, we ended up with a very exciting start, and then everyone else kind of got strung out by about lap 7, lap 8 after some drama and all the likes. But let's talk about coming in towards 2018, 2019. I know we've seen you in some of these sort of feeder series broadcasts before, be it Formula Renault at some points or Pro Mazda. I know I've seen you at some points along the way. 2019 season 1 of 2019 seems like it's going to be pretty interesting. What with that Formula Renault 3.5 getting dropped in, and of course the Dallara F3 car really into the mix. where do you think you're going to find yourself racing? Is it going to be a Pro Mazda man? Are you going to be in the 2.0 car? Are you going to be in the immense-sounding 3.5 machine, or the Formula 3 car with the odd air intake that's always sort of made me sort of look at it somewhat, let's just say curiously? Where do you think you'll be driving this season?
You know, it's funny you asked me that after the race in Zolder, I guess. And I had said that I was going to get both, and I did, and they're both really fun. The Formula 3 car feels a little bit more natural coming from this one. The Formula 3 is almost like a super pro Mazda. It just brakes so much harder and corners so much quicker, and it's kind of
like between an Indy Lights car and an Indy car, I think, is a 3.5 really. Probably.
Yeah, exactly. It's they're all great pleasures, and I think I may be wearing more open wheel hats this coming season than ever. They're all so much fun, and like I said, the group here is great. Brenton and everybody that puts this on is awesome. So not going to be able to leave Pro Mazda for good anytime soon.
Well, yeah, I don't think I could blame you on that one if you decide to not take a leave of absence, because the open wheel guys, these cars, especially the entry level ones, they can put on a lot of fun on a lot of different racetracks. But thanks for joining us, Hayden. Congrats on a good third place finish here in race number 2, and any shout outs that you have before we let you go.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank my team there, Action Sim Sport. You can catch us in Pro Mazda events and the upcoming endurance races next year. Sorry to my teammate Colin Jackson. Looked like we were kind of setting up a good battle. I was kind of catching him there a little bit, and then he lost it at No Name Corner, so unfortunate end for him. But yeah, just thanks to Brenton and the whole community that puts this on. It's a great event.
Well, there he was. Hayden Gober comes away with third place in the Pro Mazda division. Definitely seems happy about that, and of course dealing with where he's going to race going into next season with all the new cars we have. And we will check back in.
Hey, I got to interview, guys.
With Brenton Parker, who seems to be shouting at somebody. Brenton, pandemonium here in race number 2. A very interesting grid setup. Actually went a bit better than I think many expected it to go. Talk me through this here, race number 2. Not a great finish for you. I believe you got into some drama. Actually, no, you ended up P5. That's about as good as you can expect, I think, given your experience level in the 79.
Yeah, considering from, last night I was lapping in the 79. I've done a full season in it once or twice, but it's been a while. Last night I couldn't get 3 laps without crashing through Eau Rouge, and by the end of the second race there, I was setting 209s, which was not all that far off of the leaders, but I just, get a little bit of traffic and not super consistent in the car, but kept it on track, had a good finish, had fun. Hopefully there were some good battles farther down that you guys could watch. And, the main thing, just stoked to raise some money for a family that needs it. So that was the most important thing. And I think we did pretty well there. Like I said earlier, almost $1,000 for me to play a video game that I enjoy playing anyways. So it's kind of a win-win. Can't really complain.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. It's a big win-win there, especially for Ava. Very good cause there. We might be having some more things cooking up, helping out Ava here in the near future. We will talk about that publicly when information becomes a little bit more, let's say, public. That'll be happening sooner rather than later, though, for anyone's interested on that. But, Brenton, thanks for organizing this. These are always fun events, and this is definitely the top end of fun events, especially taking advantage of the new lighting system. The track looks absolutely gorgeous at this time of day. Not a time of day that we've ever seen before, of course, on the sim this early morning. And getting to see a little bit of sunrise over the course of 30 minutes was a ton of fun. So thanks, Brenton, for once again putting this on. Before we let you go, who gets it done for you?
Oh, man, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. And like I said, just thanks for everybody that showed up. And you guys always put on a good professional-looking show. I can't wait to watch it later tonight and see how it looked on your replay there. So thanks, man.
Well, we are more than happy to be able to keep doing this, and we love that you keep including us. So, Brenton, we will talk to you shortly. But for everyone else, thank you for tuning in, and that has been the presentation today for Ava's race against cancer. Once again, Ava Sierra Deal, diagnosed with neuroblastoma. Of course, that's a form of kidney cancer. She's just 3 or 4 years old, I believe. Donations be given to the family down there at the GoFundMe. Every little bit that you can give, of course, helps any family in that sort of situation. Anyone that's been around for a few years knows the way the iRacing community can come out and really help out everyone who's involved in these sort of, who finds themselves in these situations. Morgan Schooley, several years ago, of course, ended up in a very similar situation. The entire community kind of came together and helped him beautifully, and it's good to see the same thing happening once again for a young child such as Ava. But huge thanks to everyone who ends up making these broadcasts happen. Jonathan Simone was alongside me during the first race. He had to scram after the first one. I was supposed to actually mention that at the start of the second race, but as quickly as it got started, I missed out on that, so my apologies to Jonathan. It's Van Ballo at Track Cams 22, making the beautiful camera angles work that you saw today. Andy Werner is actually the graphics mastermind behind our graphics package. Simon Grossman programming the whole thing, and Nick Tisson bringing you our live timing for the large events that we have that include that. That is pretty much, I believe, a close for our Week 13 coverage here at RaceSpotTV. I will just confirm that in just a moment. And taking a peek at this. No, we got 2K World Cup still coming up tomorrow, and that's at the Bathurst Jump Fest. That sounds like it's going to be an interesting race. But thank you all for tuning in, and we hope to see you all next time. Bye-bye.